Justin and Jess are entrepreneurs with a passion for storytelling. They created the One Upper Awkward card game as a means to create structure for people to share hilarious, commonly shared human experiences. So, thank you, Justin and Jess, for being with us here today. They are brothers, so that's a lot of fun. We have them here today. So, what we just want to hear from you today is all about your personal entrepreneurial journeys. And even though you guys are kind of on the same game together, I'm sure the paths that brought you here now are quite different. I don't know how much you guys know about My Tech High, but we just love personalized education, personalized journeys, like whatever fits best for you. And so, especially in the education world, right? So many people go through high school and then like, what am I going to do next? Am I just going to jump into university? Am I going to jump right into a job? For each of you, what was your post-secondary education like?
That's a great question. So I jumped into financial services right out of college. I studied English, which I knew was not a stepping stone for a great career. It was a stepping stone. I did not end up in graduate school. So for 15, 16 years, I worked in the financial arena for a big firm. And that kind of got a little stale and some changes happened and it was time to reevaluate. And I ended up working for and buying into a company that makes color powder like you'd see for a 5K race, the color run or color me rad, or you'd see at a holy festival. And that's just been a fun thing I've been doing. That's kind of my main thing for the last 9, 10 years. And we come to the office every day and we make things up and experiment and try. And so it's never dull. That's kind of what landed me where we're at today.
Perfect. What about for you, Jess?
My story, I studied aviation science in school. I went to work for a aerospace manufacturer. I did that for 10 years. I was a product manager for some maintenance systems in aircraft. And then I just kind of felt like I wasn't progressing and it was a bit boring, was safe but boring. So I had some buddies that did Color Me Rad. It's a 5K fun run with color powder. Seemingly enough, my path and Justin's paths crossed, but they were independent of each other. Anyway, so I bought in and became a franchisee, and we did a bunch of those events in Europe. They were a lot of fun, but going into it, it was kind of a fad at the time. So we crossed our fingers that we'd get 5 years out of it, and in the end, that's about what we got out of it. And so our company started buying color powder from Justin's company, and so that's a funny way that we were in the same industry. And then, once that started scrubbing out, I went to work for another buddy in payroll and human resources services and that type of thing. And so on the side, kept a little entrepreneurial spirit alive and started working with Justin on this card game. And that's where we're at.
That is pretty cool. So it sounds like both of you did go to university and then jumped into some sort of job. And then it sounded like those jobs both kind of got a little bit stale for both of you. Like, even if it is a nice secure path that many people can take, maybe sometimes it gets a little stale. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we were both restless, kind of always restless and have an itch to scratch.
Okay, perfect. And so do you think, was it the entrepreneurial itch, or what kind of itch was it that got you to go out and try something new?
Yeah, for me, it was that itch of there's a certain amount of hours in a day, and I'd love to do something that's exciting, that's moving forward. The little bit of risk with potential return is where I wanted to spend time and energy.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of the same. Where I was in my company in aerospace, it was good. In some ways, it was, I'd risen up and had a position that was, whatever, not really prestigious, but some might call it prestigious, but it felt like kind of a dead end. It felt like if I was there another 10 years, I wouldn't be any more of a person, any better trained, any more growth for myself. And so that got me dissatisfied there and looking to take on a little risk.
Yeah, I think that's a good point you make, that there's more opportunity for growth in another space. You grew a bunch. I'm sure you could have kept growing there, but there are other ways to keep growing as well. And so I think that's really cool that you guys decided to jump over to and try your hand at entrepreneurship, at trying something new. And so is this card game? No, you guys said that the color powder stuff was kind of your first entrepreneurial pursuit. Would you say there for both of you?
Yeah, when I was in financial services, I was fairly independent. So that was, I kind of had to guide my own ship. There was a lot of structure behind me, but in the color thing, yeah, that was the first real, there's nobody behind us, right? We're going to do this or fail on our own. No one's going to bail us out. No one's got the infrastructure in place. We got to kind of pioneer that as we go.
What kind of mentality do you kind of need to have to be able to have the guts to go through that? Because that is a very scary thing for so many people to think like, oh, I like if I fail, I fail. You know, there's nothing backing me. Like, what are some of the thoughts or emotions you go through with that?
For me, the idea that the younger you are, the less you have to risk. So do it early, you know. I mean, once you have a family and kids and bills and all this responsibility, it's a little tougher per se. And when I was younger, just out of college, I had a pretty successful entrepreneur always just tell me that, and it took me a while to buy into what he was saying. But from his perspective, he was like, I would give anything to be where you guys are at, because you could risk everything and basically lose nothing. So because there wasn't much to lose at that point. So that's an interesting way to look at it.
That is, I like that. That's true. When young kids don't have a lot of bills or anything to pay, they have a lot more freedom, I guess, or a lot more, less to lose, less to lose. That's a good point.
Yeah, I have a neighbor who's very well, he's done very well in business, and he says, if you have nothing, risk everything. If you have everything, risk nothing. I like
I
that
like it.
quote. And for me, I had some residual income. So I had a base, and it wasn't totally dependent on what happens tomorrow or today. So I think a lot of people are wise to find their base and then find those kind of wealth opportunities around that. In some cases, that's a good path.
Yeah, I've heard that as well, that you kind of like if you're on a vine, you have a good base. You don't really want to let go of that until you have something else in hand.
Yeah.
And so to have something backing is always that residual income or something that can be certainly nice. So you went from the color stuff. Are you still involved in the color stuff, or did you leave that all the way behind to jump into this card game of yours?
Nope, I'm still doing the color thing, and we're expanding into some different areas there. So it's hopping, it's busy, it's engaging. This is more of a entrepreneur / passion thing. I think I'm more motivated by the fun of this than the potential financial reward in this case specifically.
I love that. I love that. That's interesting that there really could be multiple rewards. Like, yeah, entrepreneurs typically go for it because of the money involved in a successful startup or anything like that. But I love that. Well, of course, that is definitely a factor. I love that you're doing it just because you're passionate about it. Like that's what I feel like so many kids and so many people miss is they just miss the passion in how much fun you can have and still make money along the way.
Yeah,
It's kind of the best of both worlds you guys got going there.
yes, for sure.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. And Jess, you're still involved in your color things as well as you went into this card game as well.
Yeah, with COVID, we haven't had events for a couple of years, and so it's hard to know if that will come back. And the fact that those type of 5Ks were a bit faddish for sure, and so whether or not a younger generation will think that's cool, we'll have to see. But I still, I still work, and then this is on the side.
Perfect. Well, I would love to hear all about and more about the process of this card game. So I would love to hear kind of just from the start. I heard a little bit of Jess earlier that you kind of were all together as a bunch of your brothers and you kind of started this idea, but walk me through how you got from inception to where you are today. I would love to hear that.
We have a big family, and there's 9 siblings, 6 boys. And when we get together, we sit around and talk. And we find that we end up telling stories. And we could do that for hours. And a few years ago, we started having all these friends come to a particular family event. We'd sit around and talk for hours. We'd talk around a campfire. We'd talk around lunch, dinner. And I asked a lot of these people, this was their first exposure to our family. What was the best part about the 3 days? Almost always they said, listening to you guys tell stories. And we have a younger brother who is probably the prime storyteller. And at one point he had 877 cues on his phone to remind him of different stories he could bring to mind to tell. So he told me once upon a time, he said, my love language is storytelling. So we just were sitting around talking, and Jess and I are brainstorming about fun things to do. And we had done a little card game for couples, kind of a relationship card game. It's not so much as a game as a conversation starter. And we were having a lot of fun. We were starting to sell some of that on Amazon, and we thought, what's another card game? And so, Jess, you can help me, but we just kind of brainstormed through. Well, one caveat is most of the time when we're telling stories, the reason why it's funny or compelling or engaging is because there's some humor or awkwardness involved.
Yeah, so that awkward piece just makes us laugh, because so many of the stories, I mean, they're just us and different brothers or siblings in awkward situations, and we like to kind of jab each other that way. And so I think out of that was born, let's do like a conversation card, but that was all based on awkward stories, and therefore awkward, like funny, right? But it's tough if you try to tell a funny story, because if it's meant to be funny, you're setting it up for a disaster, you know. But if your focus is an awkward story, most of the time it comes with that funny element, but you're just describing the awkwardness, not specifically the funniness, although the end result is that it's funny, and because that's awkward.
That's true. And so you had to create all, did you create all of these? Actually, I don't even know really what the game is. So each card or something has one awkward thing or one story thing, or what do we have here?
Yeah, I'll show you. So this is one of our playing cards. It's One Upper, the awkward storytelling game. And if you can see there, this little character, it's like his pants fell down, and it's just supposed to represent an awkward pose. Well, the back side of it, the game, there's 5 categories, and in each category there's a prompt. So if this card is selected, there's a moderator, and they would choose which one of those prompts would be basically the prompt for a story. And then a few of the players in the game have to give their most awkward story around that prompt.
Oh, like from their actual life?
Yeah, and it wouldn't have to be their own experience, but mostly
Something they know of.
it could
at
be their,
least.
their friend or something. So on this card, for example, there's texted the wrong person. Is there an awkward story around that circumstance? And so then they would tell the story based on the most awkward texted the wrong person, or barely making it to the bathroom late. That's the next category. So of course, inevitably, there's a lot of things that revolve around the toilet or bathroom.
Of course, because those are the most funny and awkward things.
For sure. So yeah, that's the nature of. I mean, really, that's the premise at the end of the day. Telling the stories, sitting around with buddies.
And when you get in this storytelling mode, like our family does, if so-and-so is telling an awkward story about a bathroom situation, everyone else is thinking about something they heard or did or experienced. So in the game, part of what makes it a game is, let's say that McKay, you heard Jess's story and you think yourself, I got a better one. So you get the chance to opt into one up. So the idea is who ends up telling the best story around that category, and then they get the card to keep because they won that round.
I love that. And then in the end, yes, it's a game, but in the end, you have just shared such great experiences from your life that you really don't think to say, or there's sometimes not even an environment where it's appropriate or even, right to share those awkward and funny stories. But that's like, we all have those ones. And that's what really kind of connects us. And I think that might, that's part of your goal, I think, just going to connect and create this structure for all these people to get together and share their experiences.
Yeah. Yes. And we've set it up in the instructions so that if you want to compete and win cards, that's great. But if you're on a road trip with your friends or family, maybe you don't even compete. It's just a prompt to get people talking and telling stories. And we've played it several times and watched some of the younger generation, like our kids or our nieces and nephews, articulate and think of a story and try it and make it make sense and present the awkward side. And it's been really fun to watch them kind of get over their fear or come up with something, and you just watch their wheels turning. And it just ends up being a blast as a group.
That is really cool. And even like it can help people grow themselves just by sharing, kind of like you were saying, like it gets them to realize that those awkward and funny stories are actually okay to have had and to even share. And so hopefully they just feel a little bit more confident afterwards as
Yeah,
well.
that's a good point. That's a really good point you make. And obviously, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, before writing was so common, that's how people passed down their stories, was just orally, right? Just telling the stories. And so there's definitely an art for being able to lay out and be a good storyteller. And I'm sure inevitably there's some people that just tell stories for too long. So there is a place in the game where you have a time limit where you got to get that thing out. But for the
I
most
like
part,
that. I like that. I like the time limit. That because some people will just ramble on forever.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got the idea for the game. However, I know that there's a lot of like to go from idea to product, there's a lot of steps as well. So, I mean, you had those cards. It seems like it's pretty far along. Who did, like, how did you get the art ideas or how did you go into manufacturing? I would walk us through some of those steps of some of those things that maybe a lot of people don't think of when they're trying to create a game.
We had some blank white cards and we just arranged our categories. We started with a spreadsheet and said, okay, what categories we want, what things are awkward, and we made hundreds of those. Then we put them on cards, just printed them out, and then tested the game. I invited some friends. I said, I'll buy you a pizza, meet me here. And there was a crowd of 7 of us, and I only knew 3 of them before I got there. And so that was testing. Okay, now we tested a couple rounds. What did you like? What did you not like? Help us refine this. What would make you comfortable busting this out at your next family event and playing this? There's a lot of testing to try and get that right. And we didn't spend hardly any money on printing out a few words. And basically, didn't we just tape them to a card, Jess?
you always hand wrote those first.
Well, first we hand wrote them. That's right.
Love that.
And then we printed some
Stickers. Yep.
with stickers. And then just recently we got these from just a local manufacturer. This is a proof, and it's really inexpensive to get a proof. And we found a gal that does some pretty cool design and said, here's kind of what we're thinking. She came up with different fonts, different pictures, trial and error. We came back with what we liked. Jess has worked a lot with our printer to get the format right. How big is the font? And that's kind of trial and error. And we're certainly not card experts, right? We're new to this a little bit. So it's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, one thing Justin mentioned was, as far as the design goes of that logo,
Mhm.
we have an idea of what we like, but neither of us are really designers. So definitely when you're developing something, there is some element of, find someone that maybe has a talent for that. And then, we didn't say, hey, draw us a picture of a guy with his pants down to show awkwardness. We just said, this is the idea. We want to show something that represents awkward. And then she used her creativity and came back with some ideas. And this is the one we chose because we liked it. So you can do that inexpensively if you find, somebody, even maybe a student or college student, that has that skill and creativity. But then, our finished product, that design, I think, is better than anything Justin or I would have come up with ourselves. So you definitely have to partner with someone that knows an aspect of, that piece that you don't have, but you can do it in a way that, you don't have to take a loan out to make it happen.
For sure, for sure. And then and you said, Justin, that's kind of a proof that you have there. So pretty close to the final product and potentially the final product if you like all the things that are in that proof. And so you've gone through this whole entrepreneurial pursuit of creating this card game. What are some key lessons you guys would say you've learned, whether entrepreneurial or either about yourself or about how businesses run in just another aspect? I know you guys have been professionals for a long time, but maybe what is something more specific, maybe to this game, that you've learned throughout this journey?
What comes to my mind is just to have the expectation that it can take a while. We've been at this for eight months, maybe a little more. And a lot of times just Justin and I refining, brainstorming, then take a break, come back and look at it when our minds are refreshed again. And so, yeah, it's doesn't come quick, although 8 months is relatively quick in the scheme of years, but we've had a lot of time to put our minds on it.
I like that. I like that, especially in this world of, people say instant gratification. You want things just to happen in a day or a week or a month, whatever. But yeah, 8 months, that's a long time. That's a long time. Justin, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, if you see an Uno game, everyone's familiar with Uno. I have no idea what their story is. From the time they got their first card done, how long did it take before it was in all the big retailers and whatnot? So patience is one, and you really have to learn to get you have to develop a relationship with whoever is actually printing, right? They are typically busy. They don't love to do 20 cards and do a proof. They have to do it. You just have to kind of stay on them. And again, you got to be patient. And sometimes, in our case, email's not enough. You got to walk in the office, meet with the person face to face, communicate. And so that's kind of where people get probably frustrated, is things don't happen quickly, typically. So reinforced the need to be patient.
Perfect. I love that. And I'm sure that anyone who watches this will be grateful to be reminded that things take time. Like an email goes out on a Monday, they respond on Wednesday, and then they get to it on Friday, and then they get back to you again like the next Wednesday or Friday or whatever, like
Right.
it takes time, and it's kind of stressful sometimes to be like, did you even get what I said, or is anything going to go right? But finally they get back to you, or you had to go to them, but yeah, it really does take time. I think that's a valuable lesson. I love that.
And normally, from what I see, is people don't typically hit a home run on their first try. So this might be version technically 3.0, and it might be 5.0 before we're done, right? So just allow yourself the room to evolve, and don't expect perfection on your first opportunity. When we hand wrote the cards, they didn't look great, but they did the job to get the feedback we needed. And then we took the next step, and then we took the next step. And so we've let it evolve a lot, and we've tweaked it a lot to try and make it effective.
That's perfect. A lot of iterations, and that's just how it is living your life. It's just a lot of iterations of yourself, a lot of iterations of business, a lot of iterations of the card game. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. I love those things that you guys have learned. That's awesome. We are about to wrap up here soon. Is there they're all around their family all the time, and this would be this would be really fun to be able to share some of this with them. So you say it is purchasable right now, though. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's on a back order of like 10 days, but yeah, it is. It can be purchased for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, is there any final thoughts or advice you would give to students who think they want to become an entrepreneur, or any final thoughts here?
I would say give it a try. I mean, this game, who knows if it's a home run for us? And like Justin said, it might be a lot of versions before it's exactly where we want it to be. But we love it. It's a lot of fun. If someone plays it or sees it and they think it's lame or whatever, that's not going to phase us, I don't think. I think we have thick enough skin that we won't take it personal. And if it's not someone's style, that's fine. So to not be discouraged, and if there is some feedback that's not favorable to them, be open-minded to feedback, but if it's negative, don't think too much into it.
Yeah, I say chase your dreams. Life is short. Absolutely. If you had a great idea, take it, do it. Network with the right people, share your ideas, share your dreams. Somebody knows somebody who knows somebody, and things can happen.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. I super appreciate it. And I know that all of our MyTech High students that are going to be able to watch this hopefully can be inspired by some of these stories here, and just realize that it is possible. Like, it is possible. Just go out and do something, and it could work, and it could work.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate you guys' time.
Okay, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.